Welcome to Green Building Matters, the original and most popular podcast focused on the green building movement. Your host is Charlie Cicchetti, one of the most credentialed experts in the green building industry and one of the few to be honored as a lead fellow. Each week, Charlie welcomes a green building professional from around the globe to share their war stories, career advice, and unique insight into how sustainability is shaping the built environment. So settle in, grab a fresh cup of coffee, and get ready to find out why green building matters.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Dean D'Angelo with GBES. I'm really excited today. We've got a big group. As we get started, I'm going to introduce you to our panelists. We've got an exciting topic to talk about today. If you have any questions, use the Q&A feature or the chat feature. I'll try to monitor it and do the best I can with all the questions that we're going to get them in front of the panelists. If you don't hear your question answered, please feel free to reach out to James or David or Alex directly. They're going to be putting their email addresses in the chat box, and or reach out to them on your favorite social media platform, LinkedIn, whatever it is that you use. Really great guys. Can't wait for everyone to meet them. ActiveScore is been around for about 5 years. We had the pleasure of meeting them at their launch in Greenbuild last year in San Francisco. They're the leading standard on active travel, and I'm very pleased to introduce James, David, and Alex with ActiveScore. Welcome, guys.
Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure to be on here today, Dean.
Thank you. Hey, we're really excited to talk about ActiveScore, to see kind of where ActiveScore has come from, where it's going. How can we as green building professionals promote and utilize this certification? And so we're really excited. So I will turn it over to your group for your individual instructions, and then we'll just dive right into the presentation.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm James. I'm one of the co-founders of ActiveScore. And obviously, as Dean said, we have been around for about 5 years, but only recently have launched into the US. So if you haven't heard of us, don't worry. It's not exactly, we haven't been around in the US for that long, but we're already working with clients, which we'll cover a little bit more detail in our presentation. So I'll introduce the rest of the team. We've got Alex, who will also be talking on this webinar, and I'll let David do a short introduction as well.
Thanks, James. Hello, everyone. David Reed. I'm based in Boston, the United States. I've been now working with the ActiveScore team for almost a year now, and we officially launched ActiveScore at Greenbuild, as was mentioned, back in November in San Francisco. And sort of why I'm interested in working and expanding active travel and transportation is I've had a lot of experience in this industry, working with various organizations to increase the focus on building out the infrastructure needed to promote active transportation and travel, as well as the new modes that are coming online in our communities around the world. So really, ActiveScore is this intersection of transportation, sustainability, and the built environment. And so ActiveScore really focus on end-of-trip facilities and assessing and certifying buildings as being active travel friendly. And so really our mission is to get people moving active and help organizations and developments create the infrastructure and the services that support and inspire active travel. So really focus on making our built environment better and more future-proofed as people look to use more sustainable modes to move around. And as Dean mentioned, we are the only globally recognized accreditation for active travel amenities in real estate. And we used a methodology that's been developed in partnership with urban planners and active travel experts. And we essentially offer design guidance with our accreditation and focus on emerging modes of transportation and making sure we're catering to those modes. So there is the traditional bicycling, running and walking, but also e-bikes, e-scooters, cargo bikes, folding bikes, etc. We focus on reducing Scope 3 emissions, the indirect emissions to and from buildings, and make sure that we can help organizations achieve their ESG goals and requirements, as well as providing the amenities that help with attracting and retaining tenants. So that was a bit of an introduction on ActiveScore, sort of why I got involved with the team in the last year. We are new to the US, but already made significant great progress, and also very established across the UK and Europe and beyond. So from this point, I'm going to pass it over to James and Alex as they dive deeper into the presentation, and looking forward to answering questions from you all.
Thank you, David. That was great. One little bit of housekeeping that I forgot before James and Alex get started to everyone. We will be giving you the CEU information for everyone to self-register for this credit hour or credit half hour, I believe. All that information is on the end of the last slide on the end of the presentation. So we'll be giving you that right there as we come to a conclusion. All right. Thank you, James. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, David, for the great introduction. So going into a bit more detail about ActiveScore, a good place to start is obviously our ratings, and also giving you a good idea as to, out of the 250 or so developments that we've certified, where they fit into the various ratings. So in terms of the 250 or so developments, and when we say developments, a development could be an individual commercial or residential building, or it could be a collection of buildings on an estate or grouped together. So most of the buildings fall into the gold rating. So the gold ActiveScore rating is the most popular. We have some in silver. We have some in platinum. We don't currently have any that are certified. To achieve certified, you basically would have to not listen to any of our recommendations in the preliminary assessment period that we have with all of our clients. We only have got 2 buildings in the world that have achieved a platinum 100. So this is 100 out of 100. One of those developments we helped on the design side, and the other one is currently the largest office development in Europe, and it's got approximately about 2,500 bike racks within it. So we'll touch on that later, so you can see what that building looks like. Okay, so this is a summary of our scoring criteria. In total, we've got 18 topics that we score against for a commercial or office building, and it's 16 for a residential development. 70% of what we score is infrastructure related. So this is anything that you can see and touch. So it's the bike racks, the lockers, the showers, the wayfinding or signage, all the look and feel, etc., etc. So it's anything you can see and touch. And that makes up 70% of what we score. 20% of what we score are the tenant engagement services. So these are the services that are made available to the people who choose to actively travel, cycle, run, walk, etc. So, for example, these could be, is there a laundry service that's being made available by a third party or by the building itself for the people that choose to actively travel? It could be a bicycle maintenance service that happens once every quarter or once every 6 months, where a bike mechanic goes to the building and services all the bikes of all the tenant bikes who wish to have them serviced. The services don't necessarily need to be paid for by the building owners or the property managers, but what we want to see is that they're organised. Another example of a very popular engagement service that we help set up is active travel user groups within buildings. So this could be an app-based solution such as Strava, which enables people who actively travel to actually engage with each other, have competitions, for example. So we have a number of buildings that every month have competitions to see who can do the most amount of miles on their bike. So that the services are worth 20% of what we score. 10% of the marks are for future proofing. So this is where we want to see a plan in place of how a development's going to cope with the increase in active travel over the next 5 to 10 years. So in terms of benchmarking, like who do we benchmark against, etc. So we benchmark against all the very obviously well-known certifications such as LEED, WELL, BREEAM, GRESB, which is becoming extremely popular in Europe. And from what I've heard as well, it's now becoming more popular in the US. So we benchmark against them. And what that does is it allows our clients to have complete faith that if they choose to be ActiveScore certified and they listen to our advice, that they'll score full marks for the active travel topics within these other certifications. What makes us slightly different to many of these other certifications and other real estate certifications that exist is that we also look at the local planning guidelines when it comes to quantities. So when we're looking at the number of bike racks that should be within a building, or we're looking at the number of showers or the number of lockers, we also look at what the local government guidelines are. And this also forms our scoring criteria. And the reason we do this is to ensure that we're not over-specifying the number of bike racks, shower facilities or lockers within a building, or under-specifying. So our clients really like, I suppose, this localised approach that we take because it gives them complete faith that we're giving them the very best advice that's relevant to them in their given region. So that's a summary of our scoring criteria. Okay, so there's, as I'm sure you're all aware, there's lots of research out there that shows the direction that active travel is going. So there's some here as well. And I'm sure obviously these slides can be shared. So if you want to have a look into more detail about where some of this research has come from, you can do in your own time. Also, this is some research as well that's it's UK centric, but basically it talks about the effect that COVID pandemic has had on active travel, etc. And the point that's interesting is in the bottom right-hand corner where people who were surveyed by the Department for Transport were asked how likely are you to continue walking or cycling when restrictions were removed. You can see 95% said they're more likely to cycle and 94% said they're more likely to walk. So it's just giving an idea of the trend as to where active travel is going, certainly over the next 3 to 5 years.
James, can you, for our group, can you give us a little bit of a breakdown definition of active travel? I mean, what are those components and what are we really talking about specifically?
Sure, no problem. So active travel, the way we define it and what we score against is it's walking, cycling, running, or it's non-motorised. So when we say non-motorised, we mean like a bus, train, or car. So we would include some very small motorised vehicles. So, for example, a scooter or kick scooter that's powered just by you, or e-scooters within that. That's what we look at when we say active travel.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we had one question, which is a great one about your scorecard. Do you have a website or somewhere, maybe you're going to do this in your presentation, that you could direct our group to, that they could look at that scorecard in a little more detail? It was kind of hard to read on the screen. Yes. We got a lot of curious community. Our community out there is curious to see kind of what those rating criteria are.
Certainly. So we'll cover. We can certainly provide a link to where obviously someone can download that and have a look at. And we'll also, at the end of the presentation, just cover a little bit about our AP program. So if someone really wanted to delve into that, then they can find out a bit more information on it.
Great. I know that question is going to come up. I'm glad you're addressing that.
No problem at all. Thank you, Dean. Okay, so I'm now going to pass across to Alex, who'll cover the topic of how active travel fits in to the topic of sustainability and ESG, and also how ActiveScore can help.
Thank you. Yes, so as part of our scoring process and within a report, we have a dedicated section which is focused on sustainability, one of it being a clean air calculator, what you see in the bottom right-hand side of the screen. So what we do within this clean air calculator is we look at the commuting trends within a region. So basically the average commuting trends for a commercial office building within a said region. And we have certain averages of walking, cycling, private vehicles, public transport, and so on. And we look at the percentage of that average, and we look at the distance traveled. So we compare the building that we are certifying, the client that we're working with, and we compare how does the advice that we've given, so hopefully by increasing the walking and the cycling within a building, what impact does that have on that building's CO2 emissions and particulate matter over a duration of, let's say, 12 months? So we compare a best case scenario, and we say best case scenario because these assumptions are made on the basis that every single cycle parking space is in use 5 days a week throughout a year. We do understand that that's not realistically going to be the case, but for new developments, for example, it's quite useful to know what their best case scenario is. However, in order to make this clean air calculator be more accurate, we encourage our clients to carry out a detailed travel survey every 6 months, potentially, in order to better understand what their actual commuting habits are like within their building, which will mean that will generate a much more accurate tons of CO2 emissions saved and particulate matter saved, because obviously the numbers that we are using are purely against an average, whereas with a detailed travel survey, they will be tailored to that building specifically. Another benefit of this clean air calculator is that it's interactive. It's in an Excel format, and we encourage our clients to use it to set targets and see the impact of those targets and say what would happen if we increased our percentage of walking from 5% to maybe 8%, our cycling from 10% to 15%. What is that knock-on effect going to be to our CO2 emissions in a particular matter? So they can set targets and include that data within their ESG reporting and make projections and set goals, but also use these results to advertise within the building internally or externally, which if we move on to the next slide, it gives you a bit of a breakdown as to how ActiveScore and active travel as a topic can benefit a building's Scope 3 emissions. And it also explains how we link ourselves to ESG targets and reporting, the obvious being the environmental, less reliance on public transport and private vehicles, more reliance on active travel. That will have a knock-on positive impact on the environmental issues that we're experiencing. Social is an interesting topic because there's a number of ways you can address it through active travel. Social means that you create, and through our certification, like James said, there's a portion that looks at infrastructure and a portion that looks at softer measures. What that means is we can address the social topic by making these spaces as accessible for all users, make them as inclusive and as diverse as possible, make them pleasant spaces for people to be in, not just functional spaces, but pleasant spaces that will encourage and promote active travel, health and well-being, sustainable travel, but also creating these social platforms that will maybe bring people together over common ground, whether it's walking, whether it's running, whether it's cycling, whether it's scooters, whatever it may be. Having a sense of community within a building is more and more important nowadays. And that can be achieved in a number of ways. Like James said, it's purely an example. Setting up a Strava group is a good opportunity to compete, whether it is friendly competition or just creating a pool of people that are walking, running, cycling, whatever it may be, alongside other initiatives, whether it is bicycle maintenance day that a mechanic turns up on site and carries out repairs for occupants' bikes, and so on and so on. The governance, in the way we interpret it, is who is responsible for ensuring that the environmental and the social are implemented correctly and are sustained and maintained. So as part of our scoring process, we always appoint someone that we name as an active travel champion. So this doesn't necessarily have to be a new role, a new position within a company or a building. A lot of the times that responsibility gets taken on by the management team. Sometimes they might have an engagement team, potentially is emerging more and more, and they will be responsible for ensuring that the facilities and the initiatives are being provided and maintained to a high standard.
Okay, so in terms of other benefits of active travel, health and well-being, I'm sure you're all familiar with how active travel can help an individual's health and well-being. The stat from this report that I think is very interesting is how 82% of people that were surveyed said they felt less stressed when they arrived in the office after cycling to work. So health and well-being active travel can have a huge impact on health and well-being. Employee retention is another very interesting topic. When we started ActiveScore 5 years ago or so, we didn't even consider the fact that some people could choose to take a job based on the active travel facilities within their office building that they're working in. But it is happening more and more. And we're seeing, for example, this example here, Wells Fargo, obviously the large US-based bank in London. They had 4 office locations that 3 years ago they decided to merge into one. So they were refurbishing an existing office elsewhere and giving up the 4 offices and locating everyone into the new refurbished office. But we were approached by them because they said that, you know, we have to have best-in-class active travel facilities, because in some of the exit interviews that we're having of staff, some of the reasons given for leaving, I'm sure it's not the only one, but was because other banks relatively close by in London had far superior active travel facilities, and they valued that. So that was the sole reason they were asking us to get involved in the design side and the certification of their new office. So employee retention is a topic, believe it or not now, within active travel, which just again shows you another area and another reason why the trend is only going to grow as time goes on. Okay, so we've covered the certification element to what we do. We're now going to touch on the design side, which I think you'll all find quite interesting. So what will happen here is Alex will take you through what we do within our design service, but also you'll get a really good understanding of what makes a good active travel facility from Alex taking you through this.
Before Alex gets started, James, we've got a lot of lead professionals on this call, and obviously they're asking questions as it pertains to lead. Are there, and maybe you're going to address this later on down the line, but are there any lead synergies or credits like location and transportation that ActiveScore kind of blends with or has crosswalks with, so to speak?
Yeah, so there's we certainly have, we align, if you like, a number of our standards, if you like, we benchmark against are aligned with lead. So we don't have any direct, if you like, alignment as in official kind of crosswalk at this stage, but that is something that we are looking to have in the near future. But there are if you like, benchmarks where we have categorically benchmarked against lead. Alex, is there any in particular that you can think of that you could mention now?
Off the top of my head, I'm not too sure. Potentially, we could have some alignment when it comes to standards on locker quantities, specification, sometimes showers, sometimes cycle parking metrics, but it differs depending on the region. So sometimes we'll look at what region uses lead more, what region uses BREEAM more, and determine which is the best standard and certification to align with. So it varies, like we said, because we are region specific. We will look at the regional requirements and the leading certifications in the area, and we'll make a decision as to which topics to align with at that point.
Right. And I realize that LEED has a regional priority category where its rating system addresses regional differences. I would imagine ActiveScore would be able to find crosswalks within location and transportation. If not in the innovation category, there should be some things that you guys can find some synergies on. But maybe we can help you with that in the future.
Yeah, interestingly on the topic of innovation, because it came up previously in other conversations that we've had, and that inspired us to create an innovation award that we give out every year. It's not a scored topic, so it doesn't necessarily give the client extra credits or points throughout our scoring process. However, it gives them an additional maybe marketing ability or additional recognition for something that they've done that we believe deserves an innovation award. And we've got certain categories within there, which is a sustainability innovation award, an infrastructure innovation award, a commitment award, and an engagement award. So we've got 4 categories, and every year we pick what we believe is a worthy kind of a client or project that will be awarded for each category. And they tend to be kind of quite popular. The clients that have been awarded in the past have really appreciated that additional recognition.
Very nice. Okay, well, thank you.
Great. So we will now cover a little bit on our design service that we offer, and it will give everyone a good overview of what makes a best-in-class active travel facility within a building.
Yes. So the example that we're going to run through now is, like we said, is when we are engaged on more of a design advice basis, as opposed to just certifying based on what is existing, what's being proposed. We get kind of engaged in the early stages of design of a new development or a new construction. So our advice can have the most impact, and it basically makes the design process much more efficient, much more streamlined, because the client and the design team can design according to our requirements first time round, as opposed to having to do too many revisions and iterations of the designs. So when we get appointed as design consultants, we will have dedicated workshops with the appointed architect, design team, consultant, and we will explain exactly what we believe they should be doing when it comes to active travel, from everything to do with access, services, products, layout, lockers, whatever it may be, showers, changing rooms, alongside the softer measures that we mentioned. So for this example that you see in front of you, on the left-hand side is the floor plan that the client came to us with. So the project is a London-based project. It's a new development. So they had an architect appointed, and they had designed this facility that you see highlighted on the right-hand side in blue and green. They had designed this to be compliant with the local standards. So as you can see, on the whole, it's a good facility. It kind of meets the local quantity requirements when it comes to cycle parking versus your floor area and your occupancy. It meets the requirement of lockers, shower facilities, and so on. However, it's compliant, but it doesn't mean it's best in class. It doesn't mean that it's future-proof. It doesn't mean that it is comparable or it can compete with best-in-class examples of buildings worldwide. So the client realized that in order to meet the demands, the growing demands of tenants and active travel as a topic, they wanted to get additional advice. And this is where we kind of fit in, because there's no real place where you can turn to get that additional advice when it comes to best practices. There's most of the time the average kind of advice or the minimum standards that you need to meet, and nothing beyond that point. And most of our clients tend to turn to other projects, other examples that they've seen, cherry pick the best ideas and try and introduce them within their project. So what we wanted to do is through the certification and through obviously the design services, provide them all the knowledge that they need. So what we've done is given them 2 options. On the right, as you can see, we've not really affected the quantity as much, and that's quite a crucial topic, the quantity of the cycle parking spaces, because we try and usually move away from that quantity-focused advice and approach. Because what we find is as targets become stricter and stricter, requirements become more demanding, the emphasis gets put on quantity, and we move away from things like variety. And when you move away from variety, you're providing loads of cycle parking space that tend to cater for one type of user and one type of cycle most of the times. And that's not the case. Like we said, active travel is much more diverse than that. You've got all types of cycles, all types of users of all types of ability. Added to that, there's things like the alternative modes of active travel, whether it's a scooter, e-scooter, a skateboard, a Segway, all those additionals, which make a much more inclusive and diverse facility. So that's why we haven't really affected the overall quantity of cycle parking spaces as much. We tried to focus on the variety. So providing things like e-bike charging zones, providing things like irregular sized spaces and oversized spaces for cargo bikes, scooters, repair stand, folding bike lockers, and so on. The building conveniently had a vehicle-free dedicated active travel entrance or active commuter entrance, which was supported by the 2 lifts that you see centrally in the building. So that's a great opportunity to take advantage of, because again, it's the most safest way of getting from ground floor street level to the basement to the end of trip facilities. And it also allows for all users to have access to facility, because it is very important to us. So all users can safely get to that basement area. So when you get to the basement area in the original floor plan, you can see that the cycle parking was in the middle, and north and south were the shower and changing room facilities. In our opinion, the overall flow of that didn't quite work. So we suggested that you divide the facilities in half, and you say, as you come in from the lift, you enter the end of trip facilities and the cycle parking, where you can leave your active mode of transport somewhere securely and safely before you move into the shower and changing room areas. So once you move into the shower and changing room areas, you address issues or topics such as the inclusivity, where you provide shower and changing room facilities for all users and all genders. This is a topic that, again, there's no guidance out there. There's no requirement out there that touches upon this topic, where we'd like to see we'd like to see male, female DDA facilities, but we'd also like to see gender-neutral unisex facilities also provided within these spaces to cater for all genders. Added to that, we'd like to see the appropriate amenities and services and luxuries to go alongside it, because a lot of the times what we're seeing are things like lovely vanity areas with hair dryers and mirrors and towel services provided for the male and female shower facilities, but then suddenly for the disabled accessible or the unisex, they're almost add-ons just to tick a box, whereas they don't have the same amenities accessible to them. So we'd like to see a fair spread of amenities and luxuries that are available for all users. And then we go into the topic of lockers, variation of lockers. Where are they located? So are there communal lockers? Is there an over provision of lockers to cater for more than just the cyclists? A lot of the time, the common approach is a 1-to-1 ratio of lockers versus cycle parking spaces, which is fine. It's better than nothing. However, we believe that an over provision of lockers is a great thing, because it caters for more than just the cyclist. Again, moving away from that cycle-centric advice and looking at it as active travel, where the assumption is that it's not just cyclists that will be using and benefiting from the facilities. It's people that walk, it's people that run, it's people that use these facilities for lunchtime activities that may also want access to a locker system to keep their running shoes or their gym clothes, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be a large locker, and that's where we look at the split between larger lockers and smaller lockers depending on the usage and also location. So again, we address things like drying facilities and other extras in there that address multiple barriers that people may have in place against choosing active travel. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's infrastructure related. It might be the aesthetics that come into effect, like James is sharing now. What a facility looks like, feels like, is hugely important to us, and it hugely elevates the space and makes it more of a statement where the client is willing to advertise these spaces as more of a front of house experience as opposed to a back of house. We've ticked that box. We do have the cycle parking. We do have the lockers. We do have the showers, but we don't really care about what they look like because they're just functional spaces. I think we're slowly moving away from that mindset, that mentality, and making them much more attractive spaces to be in, which then have a positive impact on the building's kind of marketing. These examples here are of a building that we designed. It's a new development, and the client approached us with that logic that they really wanted to push active travel within their building, and they wanted to showcase that. And they're literally showcasing it by the fact that this building had a glazed frontage as you approached it. And this is the first thing you see as you approach the building. There's a mezzanine space above. You can roughly see it, which is where the reception area and breakout space was going to be. That you look down and you see this kind of busy, active commuter entrance and facilities being used. So the visual aspect was hugely important for this client. They said this is going to be on show, so we really wanted to look good and be in keeping with the rest of the theme of the building, or even the theme of the building was really the active travel offering. And this is what you can achieve, let's say, with a new development. But the next slide that we jump onto is what you can achieve with an existing building. So something that we've not really talked too much about is how our certification can be applied to both existing and new developments. And it's quite important to mention that because a lot of the times certifications tend to be targeted towards new construction sometimes, or maybe the suggestions of improvement that they need to introduce for an existing building may not necessarily be viable solutions. So again, we talk about things like heating, insulation, glazing, cooling. All these topics are hugely important, but a lot of the times come at a really high cost, or they're just not possible for certain buildings. Whereas active travel, if you remove our certification from the equation entirely, you just focus on active travel as a topic, tends to be quite a viable option to introduce in an existing development. And the impact that you get from it is really high when it comes to tenants' health and well-being and experience, and also the sustainability and knock-on benefits that we touched upon earlier. So it just goes to show that you can have a great result for both existing buildings and new developments. There's no limitation there, in our opinion.
Thank you very much, Alex. That's great. The next piece of the webinar I'm going to show you is what a Platinum 100 building looks like and what's within it. This building is located in central London. By no means is this a normal representation of a building in London. This is very much outstanding and best in class. But it will give you a good guide as to where active travel in buildings is going. So within this building, there's 1,200 varied bike parking spaces. They do have space to increase this to 2,000 in time, if and when necessary. It has nearly 1,400 lockers, 75 showers. There's a maintenance and bike wash station, dedicated cycle entrance, pull bike hire system within it, which I'll show you some images shortly. It's got a in-building app that can be used to book spaces. It has a full-time member of staff that manages it as well, which is quite unique. It has bike servicing, it has laundry services, bicycle training. It also has a dedicated user group as well. And here are some images of the facility. As you can see, it's some great aesthetics, good use of colour, nice looking product as well. The bike racks look more like sculptures than bike racks, as you can see. Here you can see is charging for electric bikes. And also this is the bike hire system on the right-hand side of the page. It's basically a vending machine with a folding bike within it that's accessible to all tenants.
James, as you're showing us this, we had a really great question. Does ActiveScore have anything in it in the scorecard or do any counseling regarding proper bicycle safety or maintenance or those kinds of things?
It does indeed. So each one of those is a topic in the really small detail that you couldn't see. But the answer is yes. So that would come under the 20%, which is the services, where we talk about repairs, talk about maintenance and training, which is very important. And on that note, in this image, you can see this. So this is actually on the left-hand side, the gentleman who isn't dressed as a policeman. He's the full-time member of staff that manages this facility. And this is one of the service events where the police actually come, carry out some in this case, it was bicycle marking where they actually put a microchip on bikes. So if it was stolen and recovered, they could find the original owner. And also they do exactly the same with training. So they have bicycle training companies that come in and carry out bike training for people that currently don't cycle but want to have more confidence to cycle. Okay, and the final point in terms of ActiveScore, like other certifications available on the market, is the ability to market it. So they've got, here you can see one of our buildings marketing their certification on their LinkedIn page, on their sustainability page, and also on the facility itself through the sign you can see. And here's an example of Brookfield Properties marketing the certification of their office portfolio in London via LinkedIn. Okay, here's the kind of holistic view of ActiveScore and the people that can benefit. And we're going to finish up on the final slide, which is a little bit about our AP program. If anyone out there is interested, that I'll let Alex talk a little bit about.
Thank you. Yes, so we launched the AP program in March last year, and it's a free educational program. We don't charge for it. And since then, we've had great success. We've got nearing 500 certified APs worldwide in over 30 countries. So it's proven to be hugely popular, more so than we ever expected, which is great. And like we said, we use it to educate the APs or the participants on our scoring requirements. Like James said earlier, we will go into more detail on topic by topic, our scorecard, our benchmarks, our approach. So at the end of it, the APs or the certified APs will be able to advise their clients or implement the information that they've learned onto projects that they're working on, and potentially create draft assessments through the process if they feel confident enough doing so. We don't expect them to be ActiveScore AP assessors in any way. ActiveScore still retains the verification and the certification process in-house. However, it gives them that freedom to advise on further on the topic of active travel. We're always to hand to offer advice and check things over with them before they present it to a client to ensure that everything presented is as accurate as it can be. So we make ourselves as available as we can be for all of our APs. But it's a simple hour-and-a-half online core session that we have. We can do individual participants that will join other individuals that are based around the world, or we can do dedicated organization AP sessions where a large group from an organization will participate, will do a dedicated session, and they will be certified as an organization. And as you can see here, it's about an hour and a half. We go through an example assessment, and at the end of it, you are ActiveScore AP certified, and there's no test involved. The recertification process is quite simple again, and so we're open to anyone that wants to participate. Please do get in touch.
Yeah, Alex, that's great. We the green building professionals on this call, we're all accustomed to that certification process, and I understand yours is kind of just getting off the ground there. And so the actual assessor, how many assessors does ActiveScore have?
So we have 3 in total, and we all operate remotely. So we receive information from the client, which we do via an online portal. So the client will receive an online portal and a link to an information request. They will complete that, return it to us, which we will use to create a baseline report where we outline kind of what they are and what they have in place, what they're considering if it's a new development, topic by topic, provide them suggestions on how they can improve further on each topic if possible. And they will get a representative score, which they will then be able to say, yeah, we're happy with that score, we'd like to formalize it, or they can then introduce improvements, provide us with the necessary evidence for us to improve their overall rating, and then certify them. And we can do that for a new development of plans. It doesn't have to be fully constructed or complete for us to certify it, which is quite crucial to mention, because again, it speeds up the process. process, and it gives the ability to the client to market it as early as possible. Obviously, with the design advice, the design aspect of it, then that means it's a more lengthy process where we work with the client and the design team on a longer period of time to have those workshops, revise the designs and so on and so until we reach the desired outcome. However, if it's just a certification only, then that's a much more quicker approach. And obviously, if there's an AP involved, then that streamlines the process for everyone involved because they can have direct relationship with the project and the client and not engage with us until we're absolutely necessary.
Nice. Okay. Wonderful. We've got some really great questions here to kind of wrap up this next 5 to 7 minutes, but I would like maybe if you and James could share with the group before they sign off that link to the website where they can look at the scorecard. We did have a few requests for some of the research that you guys use to base your the ActiveScore on. There's a lot of interest in kind of looking at that. So if you could share that, maybe, and your email, if I'm sure we have a lot of questions. There were a lot of questions coming in. Do you have buildings in Qatar, UAE? There's a lot of interest in the regionality component of this. And so pairing with that, one of the questions I received was, does the system consider the local weather patterns in its analysis, resulting in different weighting of specific measures? To me, that speaks of the regionality of the scoring system. Is what kind of things are taken into consideration in a London climate versus a maybe a Southwest U.S. Arid desert kind of climate?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic and something that we've learned a lot through the AP program, because something that we benefit from is speaking to people that are in different areas. We're mostly UK based and US with David. So our knowledge on these regions is limited. So through the AP program, we've managed to learn about these climate differences. So UAE, we've got a lot of APs certified there, where they explain to us that the climate is definitely a barrier that you can't necessarily overcome. So maybe active travel is a bit harder to encourage and adopt because it's a cultural climate situation that you have to deal with. So it might be that we advise that certain times of the day would be appropriate to actively commute on certain types of active mobility, but also when it comes to our scoring requirements, they will slightly differ. So if it's, let's say, a drying room, which is basically an area for you to dry your wet clothes if you've cycled in on a rainy, wet day. So that may not be applicable in certain regions, where it will be more applicable to have a drying cabinet or an airing cabinet for kind of sweaty clothes. Or it might be that we look at a different provision of end-of-trip facilities and products to cater for different types of active mobility that are more prominent in the area. So we'll always try and take into account certain cultural and climate differences that we experience in each region within reason, because we don't want to reduce our requirements so much that it makes it too easy to achieve a rating compared to maybe another region in the world. We want our levels or rating systems to be comparable globally. So if you achieve a gold rating in Qatar, you want it to be relative to a building in London or in New York.
Also, I think on that is the importance of electrification. One thing's for sure, in terms of more hotter climates, the electrification, so e-bikes, e-scooters are certainly, we expect to see they're going to be more popular than in cooler climates for obvious reasons. And that's a trend that we've certainly picked up on from talking to our APs who are located in hot climates.
Thank you. We had a couple questions about this presentation. Obviously, this is a recorded webinar, but we'll not be sharing it. It's available to our GBS Unlimited subscribers as part of their subscription, but as a regular policy, we won't be sending out a mass email. James, Alex, I encourage the group to reach out to you if they're interested in diving in a little bit more with you and that presentation deck. and maybe talking on an organizational level or an individual level. I think that would be a much better use of this resource. Another question I received was about the design fees. Is there information on your website or that you can share right now? We've got a couple minutes on how the design fees are structured for the clients.
Yeah, sure. So we essentially have for the design service, we've got two options. We've got the design consultation and the design lab service. We essentially have three options in total, which is the certification only is the option one. That is more applicable for existing buildings or new developments that are quite progressed within their design. So it means that through the certification process, it's a much quicker step-by-step process, a three-step process: information gathering, preliminary report, formal report. And it means that through the advice that we give them, there will be kind of some easy ways they can make improvements. And that's the option one. And that is $1,700 per year for a minimum of 2 years. And that is a per building price. Option two, what we said with the design consultation, is the example that we took you through earlier, where we have the dedicated workshops with the design team, the architect consultancy, and we don't do any of the detailed drawings ourselves. We just have workshops and review our reports and do multiple iterations of the reports until we reach that desired outcome. And that is $5,000, which includes the option one certification. And that again is per building. Option three is the design lab service, where it includes option one and option two. But what is added to that is we do the detailed drawings in-house. So that's more applicable for clients that don't have a dedicated design team or architect capable of doing the drawings, at which case we will be taking control of that. That is not as popular an option in any way, purely because most of the times, if you're dealing with a client that is working on a new construction or extensive refurbishment, most likely they will have an appointed design team capable of doing the drawings, which means option two would be the most logical one, as we would be instructed early on during that design phase when we can have the most impact. So yeah, that's James, if you want to kind of add to that.
No, that's perfect, Alex. They're the three options. And in terms of the questions about, which have been covered by Dean in terms of the scorecard, we will be that is on our website. So if you can't find it, please do reach out to us via email. That's no problem at all. It's just activetravelscore.com, and we can obviously provide you with that information.
Great. You're able to give the group that information. That's wonderful. Apologies. I think there might have been a typo on the CEU slide. So I'll double check on that, but there is no GBCI number. This is not obviously a pre-approved course or webinar. You won't need that GBCI number to report your CEU hours. A lot of great questions that would have liked to have a little more time to get into, but I really think you three presented a lot of great information. This is an introductory type of webinar. We'd like to get the information, put some faces to some names, and we'll leave it up to our community to reach out directly and communicate on any interests on upcoming projects. I think that AP program, I'd love to talk to you three a little bit more about that. And I'm really excited to learn more about the wins that you're having all across the globe.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you three for being here. Thank you, everyone. What a great turnout we had today. I appreciate everyone's attendance. Go to gbs.com to check out any future webinars coming up. We'd love to see everyone back here. I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to our loyal listeners. We actually are celebrating over 1 year here on the Green Building Matters podcast. Me and the entire team were stoked and just so glad you continue to listen every Wednesday morning to a new interview with a green building professional here in this industry, or just some pro tips that we want to make sure that you are getting straight from us, straight to you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. At gbes.com, our mission is to advance the green building movement through best-in-class education and encouragement. Remember, you can go to gbes.com/podcast for any notes and links that we mentioned in today's episode. And you can actually see the other episodes that have already been recorded with our amazing guests. Please tell your friends about this podcast. Tell your colleagues. And if you really enjoyed it, leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on next week's episode.